Good morning, delegates. Thank you for those who were able to join us for the reception last night. Welcome to the 2023 Indiana State Bar Association's House of Delegates meeting. It is my honor to serve as this year's chair. I call this meeting to order. As you know, some of our delegates are attending virtually. We believe we have the technology and plan to manage today's meeting, but we should always expect the unexpected. We appreciate your patience as we navigate this meeting together. With me on the dais is Cindy Carrasco, a parliamentarian, Secretary Scott Wiley from Evansville, and we also have the chair-elect, Seamus Boyce. I would also like to recognize Chief Justice Loretta Rush, who will share an update from the Supreme Court in a few minutes. Just a reminder that the materials for the meeting can be found on the State Bar's website. The link was shared with all delegates via email. We will begin by hearing from Vaughn Levin of Indianapolis. Vaughn is the chair of the Committee on Credentials and Admissions.
Chairwoman Henshaw, it is my pleasure to report that the delegates present today are properly certified and the quorum is present.
Thank you, Vaughn. Now we hear from our chair of Rules and Calendar, Nick Wong of Indianapolis.
Chairman Henshaw, I move that the calendar as provided be accepted as the order of the day.
Thank you, Nick. Do we have a second? Any discussion? I hear none. All in favor of approving the calendar as the order of the day, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. Virtual delegates, please vote via the poll that now appears on your screen. Thank you. The calendar is approved. We now have the privilege of hearing from the president of our association, Amy Noe Nuditis of Richmond.
Good morning. About 3 weeks ago, I was in a chambers conference with a few other attorneys. And later that day, I was still somewhat at a loss of how to get started, although Joe Steele did give me permission to perform an interpretive theme. So lucky for you, this chambers conference saved you from that terrible. So we're doing as we do in these conferences: business is done, respectful advocacy concluded, small talk is made. My colleagues were curious how I felt about my year coming to work. I told them it's bittersweet. It's been so incredibly rewarding, and I've loved the experience. But yes, sometimes it's a lot, and it can be exhausting. One of my colleagues had this incredulous outburst, and I took him to mean, why is it a lot? Why is it sometimes exhausting? So I started to explain, well, you know, there's a lot of traffic. He cut me off and he said, no, why have you loved it? Why would anyone want to do that? That skeptical colleague became my muse in putting together these remarks, and lucky for you, saved you from interpretive things. Why I loved it, the president's report in no particular order by Amy Dewey. I have a seat at the table for meaningful conversations about challenges facing the legal profession: law school debt, attorney shortages, generative AI, and the ever problematic lack of access to justice. We have been researching and gathering data nationwide, conducting deep dive discussions with the Board of Governors, surveying members, and monitoring and engaging in policy discussions to ensure the voices of all our members are heard. Am I on that? Did I push the button? There we go. I'm sorry. Should I start over? Oh.
Do the dance part.
You don't want that. My plan to host the Board of Governors meeting in Richmond was thwarted by the literal dumpster fire that made international news. I had the privilege of hosting the state bar associations of Colorado, Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska, Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin at the Great Rivers Bar Conference in Savannah, Georgia. This opportunity to share experiences and make connections with other state bars is invaluable. If I ever needed confirmation that the ISBA is doing great work and has the respect of other state bar associations, I definitely got it. I was invited to so many interesting events, like the new admittee admission ceremonies, Leadership Development Academy sessions, the Law and Leadership Breakfast, Chief Justice Rush's State of the Judiciary, various robing and retirement ceremonies, McKinney and Maurer boards of visitors, and the Indiana Bar Foundation's inaugural Indiana Civic Summit. I got to travel to Chicago, New Orleans, Savannah, Williamsburg, Washington, D.C., and Denver, where I learned that altitude sickness is real, y'all. I was there when Chief Justice Rush addressed the ABA House of Delegates as president of the Conference of Chief Justices, and I was part of her entourage that accompanied her onto the House floor. I could not have been more proud. I gave media interviews about women in the law, proposed rule changes, the ISBA's newly established Pro Bono Academy, and the ISBA's ongoing study and education about AI. I learned to bring a paper copy of any remarks when my iPad crashed right when I started speaking at the Solo Small Firm Conference. I joined other ABA members in celebrating Mary Smith as the first Native American woman president of that association. Not that I needed proof, but I witnessed firsthand what a well-oiled machine the ISBA is. If you're not aware of it, I'd say we have the best team an association could ask for. I mean, being president isn't exactly easy, but every single member of that staff hand delivers everything you need whenever you need it. There is never, ever a sense of anyone being too busy for you. They truly serve, and they're all really, really great humans. And you don't often have the opportunity to see a team act in a crisis, but this year I did. When Joe Skeel had a heart attack back in May, when we didn't know how he would fare, I determined that my calm and solid leadership would be what it took to take everyone operating. I grabbed a hotel room downtown, planning to spend a few days at headquarters and just tending the flock, making sure everyone was okay. Well, I got there and everyone was like, oh, hey. And they were just making things happen. They were a little freaked out, but they were worried about their friend Joe. They weren't worried about their boss. They were worried about how he was doing. They weren't worried about what they might do in his absence, how they would know, because they already run like such an efficient team. It was actually one of the most impressive displays of collaboration and care that I've ever seen among colleagues. Now, in contemplating my final answer to that colleague who can't fathom why this role could be so rewarding, I was reminded of an episode of The Monkees. You know, the one where the boys, they get lost in hill country on their way to a gig, and cute little Ellie Mae falls in love with Davy and causes the unstable peace between the Chubbers and the Westgits to fall apart? No? Okay. Well, at one point, there's of course a shootout, and Mickey, who was the one with the floppy hair, and Mike, the long, cool, tall fella from Texas, he always wore the toboggan hat, you know? They're hunkered down behind a rock, and a panicky Mickey asks Mike why he's not freaking out. And Mike responds, because these are my people. And I'm willing to bet that's the first ever Monkees reference in House of Delegates history. Anyway, so why have I loved my time in this role? Because you are my people. This work has helped remind me of how much I like hanging out with really good lawyers, my brothers and sisters-in-law. Engagement in the ISBA, whether as a brand new lawyer 20-some years ago, or during the past few years ascending the chairs, has allowed me to make connections with so many of you. You've become great and lifelong friends and share so many memories with me, like the following. I once showed up at Doug Church's woodland retreat, totally drenched from being caught in a rainstorm right before a meeting, because I decided to take a hike in the park. Carol Adanamis served as a shining example of graceful leadership as I prepared to chair the Legal Ethics Committee. I promised Terry Tolliver that I will be available for lunch more often when he drops by in Richmond. I watched the Fort Wayne Tin Caps play ball with Eric Chickenings. I watched fireworks on the lake with Dan Vinovich. And I rode on the back of a converted trolley car with Jeff Lind. Mitch Heppenheimer taught me how to eat oysters raw. I practiced the bend and snap with Justice David after we watched a community theater performance of Legally Blonde. Melissa May did not hold it against me when I asked her the first time I met her, "Where do you work?" I saw Hamilton in Chicago with Scott Wiley. Andy Metzel and Marianne Owen called me to offer shelter at a very difficult time in my life. I unknowingly channeled Bill Jonas's dear departed mother twice. Rod Morgan, may he rest in peace, knowing I have no math skills, appointed me as his treasurer, a role that taught me more than I ever expected. I taught Barb Stutesbury improv, and she was good. Tom Pierce treated me like a grown-up when I was really just a kid. Anka Hinshaw, just wow. I walked on the beach with Clayton Miller and his sweet dog Baxter. Commander Catherine Pulley gave me a behind-the-scenes tour of Norfolk Naval Station and tried to convince me that she knew how to drive a battleship. I've listened to Tim Baker play guitar during a cutthroat euchre game. The first time I met Jim Riley, he had a bathrobe on over his suit. I've witnessed Mike Tolbert do one-armed push-ups. The day after my bar results showed up in my mailbox, Jim Williams asked me if I passed from the bench on the record. I envied Tanya Bond's spirit in trying to get caught at Muscatatuck by trainee Black Ops. I swam in Lake Monroe at Rich Enan's lake home. Bob Maley, may he rest in peace, was looking out for me and I didn't even know it. I have no doubt that Jackie Pillar will always have my back. I watched a Mardi Gras parade in New Orleans with Tom Feltz and his wife Kay, who bought us matching hairbands in a souvenir shop. And I now know Joe Skeel is a true Jedi. I cannot express enough my deepest gratitude to my husband and my soulmate, Andy, who has been through it all with me. He has been my constant companion and biggest supporter, and I am so thankful to have him as my partner in everything. My friends, I appreciate your confidence in allowing me to play a small part in the history of the ISBA. It has been my privilege. Thank you.
Thank you, President Dudas, for those wonderful remarks. Twice a year, the Indiana State Bar Association sends representatives to participate in national conversations taking place at the American Bar Association's House of Delegates. I'd like to invite Melissa Avery to share an update on behalf of the Indiana delegation.
Thank you, Chair Hinshaw. For those of you who don't know me, again, my name is Melissa Avery. I practice family law in Indianapolis with Broyles Kite and Rickefort PC. I've had the pleasure of serving as the Indiana State Delegate to the American Bar Association House of Delegates since August of 2018. Before I begin, I want to say what an honor it is to speak to this body today. I began my legal career in Columbus, Ohio. My now husband of 25 years asked me to marry him in 1996 when I'd been practicing for only 2 years. In addition to proposing marriage, he also proposed that I move to Indiana and take another bar exam, which was not quite as attractive. It also required me to find a new job. And I started that search by registering to come to this very meeting. While I was here at this meeting, I had the good fortune to meet my future employer, Gail Phelps. She served as a wonderful mentor to me, not just in regard to the practice of family law, but also with regard to involvement in local, state, and national bar associations. My involvement in those organizations is what's kept me a practicing lawyer for the last 25 years. And I hope that each of us can share that and pass along that gift to a young lawyer at this meeting and any of the other bar association meetings that we attend. The American Bar Association House of Delegates is the policymaking body of that association. It adopts rules consistent with the Constitution and bylaws, elects officers of the association, and members of the Board of Governors. Established in 1936, it has approximately 600 members and meets 2 times a year at the annual meeting in August and the mid-year meeting in February. Membership of the House of Delegates is made up of 52 state delegates, state and local bar association delegates, delegates at large, present and former officers of the association, section, division, and conference delegates, ex officio members, affiliated organization delegates, and Goal 3 members at large. Your Indiana delegation met in August of this year at the annual meeting in Denver, Colorado. The Indiana delegation is comprised of the president of the association, the president-elect, 2 state bar delegates, an Indianapolis Bar Association delegate, a young lawyer representative, myself, and any other lawyer from Indiana who happens to have a seat in the House of Delegates through one of the other organizations that I just mentioned. We meet together in the morning before the House of Delegates meeting to discuss resolutions. We research them prior to that meeting and report to each other. And then we attend the meeting and vote on the resolutions. This year, in addition to consideration of resolutions, Attorney General Merrick Garland addressed the House and discussed lawyers' involvement in the war in Ukraine. The 2023 Medal of Honor was presented to Fred Gray, who was described by the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. as the chief counsel of the civil rights movement. A panel discussion was held regarding the role of state courts and constitutions when it comes to discussions of civil rights and liberties. Of the 47 resolutions and constitutional amendments that were adopted by the House of Delegates, 1 resolution clearly garnered the most attention and the most debate. Resolution 100, promulgated by the Standing Committee on Ethics and Professional Responsibility and the Standing Committee on Professional Regulation, amends the Black Letter and comments to Model Rule of Professional Conduct 1.16 regarding declining or terminating representation. This model rule now makes the lawyer's duty to inquire and assess information regarding the representation explicit, not implicit, with regard to whether the lawyer's services are being used to further criminal activity. The resolution seeks to show the government and the public that lawyers are diligent in their efforts not to further criminal or fraudulent conduct, such as money laundering, terrorist financing, human trafficking, or human rights violations. The resolution does not require or give permission for a lawyer to turn over confidential information to law enforcement. The resolution ultimately was adopted with approximately 2/3 of the House voting in favor. Changes to the ABA model rules can now be debated by state policymaking bodies such as the Indiana Supreme Court Rules Committee. In addition, the House of Delegates in August in Denver adopted resolutions urging protection of all election workers, urging adoption of the provisions of the Guardianship Bill of Rights, urging the enactment of new laws providing financial support to tenants of rental housing and the provision of adequate financial resources to provide for such support, urging Congress to enact the Women's Health Protection Act of 2023, urging jurisdictions where capital punishment is a possible penalty to take steps to prevent discrimination based on race, ethnicity, gender, or gender identity of the victim or the defendant, urging Congress to fully fund the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act at the maximum authorized level, urging advocacy for protection of First Amendment rights of students to access information by eliminating book bans in public education and libraries, supporting efforts to ensure that bar admission is not denied based solely on immigration status, encouraging governments to reject proposed or repeal existing laws and policies that target and harmfully discriminate against transgender youth, and urging lawyers to stay informed about emerging technologies and to protect digital products, systems, and data from unauthorized access, use, and modification. The full list of resolutions considered in August can be found on the ABA House of Delegates website under 2023 Annual Daily Journal. The House will next meet in Louisville, Kentucky in February of 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. It's my pleasure to invite Chief Justice Rush to the podium to share a report of the Indiana Supreme Court.
Thank you, Anka. And Amy, I am a believer. See, second monkey reference today. I want to start off by thanking Amy. She was everywhere. She's been in my house this year. She was in New Orleans. I was so proud to have the state bar delegation there representing Indiana at that particular moment. I also want to thank Joe Skeel. Joe, you bounced back better than ever. Congratulations, you had a year, but it's great to see you. Great to see you looking so fabulous. Tom Feltz, historic. Is Tom here? You got to be here. Tom's everywhere. Where are you, Tom? Oh, there you are. Gosh, there's the light. There's a bright, very bright light. And I bought the anti-glare glasses so you didn't see the bags under my eyes. So, or no, I bought the ones that weren't anti-glare so you could not see the bags under my eyes. Congratulations, Tom. I think it's historic that the first time we have a judge as president of the state bar. And I think that is historic for a lot of reasons. One, it's that relationship between the bench and bar that I think is sort of the defining feature of Indiana. We have 18,753 active lawyers in the state. We have 600 judicial officers. And that sort of dance we do together is critical for the 6.7 million Hoosiers we serve. So congratulations, Tom. I had him address all. He did a very nice commercial for you all at the annual meeting 2 weeks ago. I let him come up to the podium and address all 600 judges on how important that bar membership is and that relationship. So different things. It's going to be a little bit interactive because of that dance we do and how much we depend on lawyers to drive initiatives. I'm going to have this be interactive, so some of you may have to stand. If any of you have served on any Supreme Court committee, Rules Committee, Continuing Legal Education, Board of Law Examiners, JLAP, or any of the others, please stand and remain standing. Any of you have served as a hearing officer on any case? Stand up. Those of you that have served on the dozens of task forces, initiative, Youth Services Council, the bar, when we went to the UBE, the Innovation Initiative, the Civil Justice Initiative, the Family Law Initiative, the Coalition for Court Access, please stand. Any of you that have ever worked with a local judge on any system improvement in your community, please stand. All right, there you have it. That's why Indiana is so great. So thank you all. And if I forgot to add something that you've done working with the judiciary, stand up now. All right, you can be seated. But I think that just shows we don't really take a step forward without saying, what does a bar think? You know, Justice David was really good and I miss him. I still miss him. I did just get together with him and I'm going to go with him as his guest when he receives an award next week. The diversity award. What does the bar think? If we move ahead with initiatives and don't bring you in to say, what do you think? What is it? What's working for you? It doesn't work. You look how far, this is my 10th time appearing before you in the House of Delegates, and you look at where we were like 10 years ago. We didn't have a unified case management system. Raise your hand if you've been on my case. All right. All right. 63 million page views last year. And I said this before, but you can find out about your kids too. I found out when my kids had something I didn't know about. I had to have talking with them. And but I think about that transparency. We've had 1 million protective orders now on the registry. 1 million. 10% of our civil cases are protective orders. When we're looking at the processing of cases, the civil justice task force, and what we do is we look at what's working around the country and we think we want to bring it back to Indiana. How can we get cases processed, better ways of doing it? How can you triage, use a case management, use case management hearings to get it done? It shouldn't take 18 months to get an uncontested divorce. How do you triage and get these cases done so that the judicial system isn't slow, expensive, and not fair? We worry about those things, and that's why we need to hear from you. Something simple like this. Expungements came out, and our court tech we're doing it, they could have done it better. They had the expungement sort of listed at the bottom of the page. They go, no, it should be at the top, so somebody could go right away and see it's expunged. Simple fix. We have an Odyssey help desk that's available anytime you would get an Odyssey and not have that done. When we decided to do Odyssey, in my case, at first and foremost, it was important that you not have to pay like you do in the federal system. Any federal judges? Is Tim Baker in here now? Sorry, Tim. But it was important to me that it's expensive. I was a practitioner for 16 years. I know what overhead looks like in your office. It was, anything we can do with core technology is that you don't have to pay. We think it's important. And when we look at more things that we're doing in the future, we are hiring an outside company with regard to help us on data analytics. We have a tremendous amount of data with regard to cases that are filed and trends and, time frames. So you'll hear more from that. They're giving us support and we're looking at that. Attorney discipline has stayed about the same, and it's up maybe 50 cases last year, but it used to be like 1,800. It's down to about 1,300. I love the fact you can call, it's not a get out of jail free. We had over 100 attorneys call last year to find out, hey, I've got this issue. What do you think? I like that because you really want to do that before. And Mike, you got that started before you left. The advisory opinions that they're doing now to give that guidance. Judicial discipline was up. It was about 600 cases 2 years ago. It's down to about 500 cases. A third of our judiciary is new. And there's some added responsibility for you and for us to make sure we do the training. We just got done with the annual meeting. It is required legislatively that they go, but we provided, I can't remember how many hours of training last year. I think it was our education division within the court provided 1,300 hours of training. And that is training court staff, probation officers, justice partners. We think education is key. Judges are required to have 50% more continuing legal education than attorneys. We think it's important. We made a rule change 2 years ago that you could do all of your distance learning. And that was controversial. And are people still going to show up live? And what I'm learning is people are still showing up live. I think people have this natural tendency that they want to be together. Thus, last night's event, the Solo and Small Firm, such a great event. I had the Leadership Development Academy at my house again, watching those young lawyers come through and become such unbelievable members of the bar. Is so rewarding. So congratulations to all of you on that program. And it takes a lot of work to get that done. Some of the other things that we're looking at doing right now, we're going to do district meetings where the Supreme Court goes around the state and talks to all the judges. We just got back from Steuben County 2 days ago. We did an oral argument up there. And we're hearing all over the place, we can't get enough, there are not enough attorneys to fill the public service positions or even trying to get associates. We sort of have a graying we do have a graying. I mean, I'm sitting up here, I graduated from law school 40 years ago. I color my hair, I'd be the graying of the legal profession. But what are we going to do? We've got to start thinking about it now. We have legal deserts. I have a team right now today at a Midwest conference dealing with best practices. Justin Faulkner, we had Senator Linda Rogers, Beth Green from Department of Workforce Development, Hunter Reese, to bring some ideas back. The Conference of Chief Justices, we have a new committee that I'm on. It's the Commission on Legal Education and Admission Reform. We're working with the ABA so we can look at what does it look like. We need to drive this, or it's just we're going to be driven out. I really miss Valpo. So many great attorneys were from Valpo, and I think there's a big gap. When I talked to Cindy, worked for the governor, and you've got some counties where you have 2 people apply for judge. You've got 3 attorneys in town. One's a judge, one's a prosecutor, one's a public defender. I mean, it's Judge Wheat's wife was telling me this week up in Angola, I gotta work, she goes, I'm tired. I gotta work 7 days a week. There's no attorneys. So we have to think about that and wait. AI and ChatGPT, we got to train our judges on this. We have a full day training for the judiciary in December on that. It's not going away, it's here. Do we need to look at ethical rules? Do we need to change our rules? That's something that we have to stay ahead of. On the national scene, what we're seeing in other states, we're not immune from. The lack of public trust and confidence in the judiciary is just key. People don't think, oh, there's a state court judge, there's a federal court judge. They see us all, you guys. And we have lost about 15 under a pretty solid national survey done by the National Center of State Courts. We've gone down 15% on public trust and confidence. So we used to be, but we still are. If the people that do know the state versus federal, they look at that. But every time you're representing a client, every judge that somebody comes before you, every person that comes in a courtroom and asks, any of those people, that's your sort of opportunity to instill public trust and confidence. I went to spend half a day at Shortridge last week, meeting with teenagers talking about Constitution Day. And I know a lot of you do similar things. It's so important. A lot of kids will, the first time they see a judge or see a lawyer is when they're in trouble in court, and there's this lack of trust before. So thank you all for the civics outreach, and the We the People program that the Indiana Bar Foundation is doing is fantastic. Finally, we had a really good year with the legislature and funding. We got some historic funding to really work on some systems improvement throughout the state. We had been begging for technology funding. We finally got a steady source of technology funding, which is key. We got funding for increase in problem-solving courts, pretrial reform. Commercial courts are now institutionalized. So the legislature was very good to us this past session. So finally, thank you all. I know sometimes when I call, I always, they think that you think you're in trouble. Why is it you think you're in trouble when I call? I'm calling to ask. Or you could be like the people I see. If you see the chief coming at you, duck, she's going to ask you to do something. Really proud that we've got the Pacific Asian ABA coming here. We've got the National Association of Women Judges coming next week. I think Indiana is really getting a lot done, and thank you all for your work.
Thank you, Chief Justice Rush. I'm sad to report the passing of several ISBA members over the past year. I direct your attention to the screen as I read their names. Linda Daig, Muncie. Karen Love, Pittsboro. Charles Rutherford Jr., Muncie. Robert McMahon, Terre Haute. Lambert Janettos, Valparaiso. Judge Robert Kirch, Fort Wayne. Joseph Hero, St. John. Andrew Emerson, Indianapolis. Timothy Morrison, Bloomington. R. Michael Minor, Greenwood. James Dowling, Indianapolis. Martin Bedrock, Knox. Robert Walter, Auburn. Roderick Morgan, Indianapolis. Former ISBA president, 2009 to 2010. Barbara Sueda, South Bend. Carl Calhoun, Argos. Robert Beasley, Muncie. Wayne Lennington, Muncie. G. Terrence Corridon, Columbus. Don Ashley, Boonville. Stephen Colvier, Terre Haute. C. Daniel Motzinger, Indianapolis. Judge William Gerard, Plainfield. Gene Robbins, Zionsville. Judge Viola Talaferro, Bloomington. Harry Cloud, Rushville. Robert Thompson Jr., Indianapolis. Lauren Allison, Fort Wayne. Martin Olferts, Michigan City. Tony West, Newcastle. Gerald Bepko, Indianapolis. I welcome in-person delegates to come to the microphone or virtual delegates to request to be unmuted in the Zoom chat to share the names of anyone we may have missed.
Amy Dudas, Wayne County. Keith Dilworth passed away on December 30, 2022. And Judge Doug Van Middlesworth passed away August 5th, 2023.
Andrew Hicks from Elkhart County. We had two members that will be greatly missed, Vernon Atwater and Raymond Buddy Balo.
Please join me in a moment of silence to honor their dedication, contribution, and service to the people of Indiana. Thank you. Now I would like to invite our friends from the Indiana Bars Foundation to share some of the amazing work they've done in the past year. Joining us from the foundation is Karen Glaw of Indianapolis, Chair of the Indiana Bar Foundation.
Good morning. I'm Karen Glaw, a partner at Faegre Drinker and Chair of the Indiana Bar Foundation Board of Directors. I'm pleased to represent the foundation's board and staff today to provide you with a brief update of some of the exciting new initiatives that the foundation has been focusing on in 2023. And I already failed at my slide job. I wanted to start my report with a brief look forward to the foundation's upcoming 75th anniversary in 2025. This milestone anniversary will give us the opportunity to celebrate the Indiana legal community and all that we have been able to accomplish together through the foundation. So before I share a summary of what the Bar Foundation has done this past year, I would like to start by asking each of you, members of the Indiana legal community, to reflect on a few questions. When did you first know you wanted to become a lawyer? What person or event taught you what it really means to be a lawyer? How did you envision your legal career helping your fellow Hoosiers? And have you used your position as a lawyer to teach and inspire the next generation? As you think about your own answers, please allow me to share some recent highlights from the Bar Foundation. Then I will close with a personal and professional invitation for you to think of ways you can partner with the foundation and other members of the Indiana legal community to dream big and make transformational and lasting change to improve the lives of our fellow Hoosiers. The word of the year at the Indiana Bar Foundation has been kiosk. During the past 10 months, through a partnership with the Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority, the foundation has deployed 150 kiosks to help bridge the digital divide and provide more Hoosiers with access to our newly enhanced website, indianalegalhelp.org, which serves as the virtual front door to connect people to free legal services and resources. The foundation placed these kiosks in courthouses, libraries, and community spaces throughout the state, with at least one in each of Indiana's 92 counties. From a kiosk, Hoosiers can easily search by zip code to find legal aid organizations and clinics in their area, as well as access self-help court forms that have been reviewed and approved by the Coalition for Court Access. Kiosk users and visitors to the Indiana Legal Help website can also connect to legal navigators through the new Indiana Legal Help Desk to get information about evictions and other housing issues. Since the first kiosk opened to the public last November, the search and housing resources pages have been viewed more than 13,000 times by kiosk users. If you haven't had the chance to check out the resources available on the indianalegalhelp.org website, I invite you to stop by our mobile kiosk here at this meeting. It's just outside near registration, and explore the resources that are now available to Hoosiers around the state through one of the 150 new kiosks, or visit indianalegalhelp.org on your own computer or device. This year, the foundation is awarding $3.6 million in grants to support the critical work of 13 Indiana civil legal aid organizations. Allocating funding to civil legal assistance providers reflects the foundation's commitment to direct funding where it has the most significant impact. These grant dollars help demonstrate our collective commitment to equal justice under law that is the cornerstone of the rule of law and the ideals of our profession. In addition to all that the foundation has done to advance civil legal assistance, we have also had an eventful year in our civic education programs. As with all of the foundation's work, these programs and initiatives are only possible with the support of people like you. Your volunteer hours, valuable expertise, time, and resources are the driving force behind the work the foundation undertakes. And we are grateful to those in attendance who have partnered with us this past year. I also urge you all to consider signing up to volunteer for We the People, high school mock trial, or by providing a donation to support the foundation's mission. The foundation's flagship civic education programs, We the People and Mock Trial, continue to expand. More than 1,300 students from across Indiana participated in the We the People and Mock Trial competitions last school year. Nearly 7,000 We the People textbooks and ebooks were distributed, and more than 6,000 students were impacted through teacher training provided by the foundation. With the support of the ISBA leadership, the administration of Indiana Kids Election has shifted to the foundation. Indiana Kids Election helps students understand the role and importance of voting in our democracy and strengthens the habit of voting as students move into adulthood. We piloted the revamped program in 2022 with 15 schools and more than 2,000 students, and we have big plans for expanding the reach and impact of the program during the upcoming 2024 election cycle. The foundation was excited to host the inaugural Indiana Civics Summit in April. This day-long event brought together a diverse set of national, state, and local leaders and stakeholders who are committed to improving civic education and engagement. The keynote speaker for the event was diplomat, author, and president of the Council on Foreign Relations, Dr. Richard Haass. At the conclusion of the summit, the foundation launched the Indiana Civics Coalition. The coalition is a conduit for individuals and organizations to work together on improving our communities through civics and advancing the cause of civics in our state. 3 committees of the coalition will support its work: civic advocacy, civic education, and civic health. Each committee has set goals and priorities for the upcoming year. If you haven't already, please consider joining us in participating in the work of the coalition, and feel free to reach out to Foundation President and CEO Chuck Dunlap to learn more. Through the coalition, the foundation is in the process of producing the 6th edition of the Indiana Civic Health Index. The index has become a go-to resource for data on voter registration, voting, community involvement, and other factors influencing Indiana's civic health. The report, which will be released in January, will include data essential to identifying the successes and challenges in moving the needle to increase Indiana's civic health and civic engagement. During our annual meeting and awards luncheon in June, we recognized 3 individuals who exemplify the foundation's mission. We were pleased to honor retired Chief Justice Randall T. Shepard with the foundation's Legend Award, the Honorable Melissa May of the Indiana Court of Appeals with the Champion of Civil Legal Assistance Award, and Scott Barnhart, Chief Counsel and Director of Consumer Protection at the Office of the Indiana Attorney General with the Champion of Civic Education Award. We look forward to gathering next summer to honor achievements of more deserving Hoosier leaders. Now, as I mentioned earlier, a personal and professional invitation. When an organization like the foundation has been around for 75 years, some may assume that the good work simply happens naturally, with minimal effort after decades of practice. However, as most of us quickly learn, every season brings new challenges, and past success does not allow us to rest on our laurels. In addition to our core responsibilities of legal assistance and civic education, we also have an opportunity, some would say a responsibility, to encourage and guide the next generation of lawyers. Whether helping the foundation as a volunteer at We the People or Mock Trial, as a sponsor of the Legal Diversity Initiative, or by providing pro bono services to vulnerable Hoosiers, your tangible support makes our work possible. Please save the date for the Foundation's 75th anniversary gala event and celebration on Friday, October 3rd, 2025. I know you're not already booked that day, so just write it down. You are invited to the party, just as we invite you to be part of our exciting work. We are grateful for our close partnership with the Indiana State Bar Association, the Indiana Supreme Court, and other members of the Indiana legal community, many of whom are in this room today. With your support and collaboration, the foundation remains the statewide leader in civic education and civil legal assistance, and we look forward to all that we can continue to accomplish together in the months and years to come. Thank you. And now a brief departure from your agenda. I'd like to invite Judge Melissa May to the podium for a special presentation.
Thank you, Karen. Good morning. A year ago at the Alexander, I helped welcome Amy Noy-Dudas as incoming president of the ISBA. During this year, she has traveled the state, written numerous articles, spoken on numerous occasions, and served as a face of our State Bar Association to the lawyers and citizens of the state. She has gone without sleep and probably eaten more than her share of lunch and dinner chicken. The majority of us, I think, go through life not being able to fully appreciate the people whose lives touched ours, or the lives whose trajectory, however slightly, we might have influenced. From the first time I met Amy, I knew she was going to be one of those people who made a difference in my life and in the lives of many others. She is someone who not only is able to get things done, but to get them done while maintaining both her moral compass and, as you've seen, her sense of humor. When we welcomed Amy as bar president, her many accomplishments were mentioned. Her dedication to public service, her willingness to be involved and give of herself for the greater good of Indiana lawyers, her dedication to the best interest of her clients, her commitment to do everything with the assistance of her husband and life partner, Andy Dudas. As part of that welcoming, a piece of art containing the signatures of many remarkable women whose accomplishments and life experiences were significant was given to Amy. Although the sentiments contained in that artwork can never be duplicated, I am hopeful that recognition of a different sort would also be welcome. Some time ago, when Edgar Whitcomb was governor of Indiana, he recognized that outstanding Indiana residents need recognition for their acts and accomplishments, that Indiana should recognize citizens who distinguish themselves by significant contributions to their communities and whose qualities and actions endear them in the hearts and mind of Hoosiers. I, along with many others, including Justice Steve David, all of the trial court judges from Wayne County, Judge April Drake, Judge Charles Todd Jr., Judge Gregory Horn, Judge Darren M. Delahanty, including Mayor David Snow, Richmond Common Council District 3 Representative Bill Engel, ISBA's Joe Skeel, and Chuck Dunlap from the Indiana Bar Foundation, along with Amy's husband, Andy, nominated Amy Noy-Dudas for the Distinguished Hoosier Award. On behalf of all who wrote, called, or otherwise contributed, I am very pleased on behalf of Governor Eric Holcomb to award to Amy Noy-Dudas the Distinguished Hoosier Award. Amy.
Congratulations to Madam President. No better person to receive that recognition. Also, thank you to the Indiana Bar Foundation for educating our delegation and helping improve access to justice in Indiana. On another note, in an effort to stay informed of activities happening with our affinity bar partners, I personally invited presidents of each association to share their work. I believe this is the first time in the House of Delegates history that the presidents of each association have been personally invited to join the House of Delegates meeting. It's my pleasure to welcome Amber Finley, President of the Marion County Bar Association, Judge Mike Whitty of the Asian Pacific American Bar Association, Jenny Bell of the Kimbrough Bar Association. Jose Vega of the Rudy Lozano Bar Association was also invited, but he had an emergency this morning and was unable to be with us. President Finley, would you like to join us and share about the Marion County Bar?
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Amber Finley and I'm president of the Marion County Bar Association. It is an honor and pleasure to be with you this morning to talk a little bit about this amazing 98-year-old organization that is the Marion County Bar Association, or NCBA for short. First, I'd like to thank the Indiana State Bar Association for the invitation to be with you today. Special thanks to Madam Chair Anka Henshaw and Executive Director Joe Skeel, and of course, President Dudas. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the MCBA, it is a local bar association here in Indianapolis, founded in 1925, based upon the principles of fairness, justice, and equality. We are an affiliate of the National Bar Association, the nation's oldest and largest national network of predominantly African-American attorneys and judges, representing the interest of approximately 65,000 lawyers, judges, law professors, and professors. This year, the Marion County Bar Association has focused on increasing our community presence and impact, increasing membership, and increasing our fundraising efforts, all to ensure the sustainability of the organization for another 98 years. Each of our events includes a community impact component, whether it's our CLE and mixer in partnership with the U.S. Attorney's Office and U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Indiana, Zach Myers. The CLE and mixer was free for attendees, and we just asked that attendees bring donations in support of the Fathers and Family Center's Suits for Success program. We asked for new or gently used business attire for men to wear during their job interviews, or a social event at the Foaling Warehouse, which is, if you're unfamiliar, a mixture of bowling and football. With the BOSSA students from IU McKinney, another free event, but the MCBA collected donations for Classrooms to Courtrooms, a program designed to broaden the pipeline of diverse or marginalized students from high school to law school. The MCBA is committed to our membership and the legal community, but we're also committed to the community in general. In the interest of time, I won't go through every event that we've done this year, but I'll just focus on a few of our recent events and upcoming events. So last week was National Voter Registration Day on September the 19th, and we hosted our annual voter registration drive. We partnered with Public Advocates in Community Reentry, or PACE, this year, and focused on registering men and women who are returning to the community from incarceration. There's still a lot of misinformation being circulated in Indiana surrounding a person's ability to vote if they have a felony. Our voter registration efforts were included in an article last Thursday in the Indianapolis Recorder newspaper entitled "Barred but Never Barred, Yes, You Can Vote." This week, we had our eviction sealing clinic on September 26th. We partnered with Indiana Legal Services to host this clinic. We were able to assist approximately 130 people and filed 275 plus pleadings, which will hopefully remove the barrier of having an eviction record and put these individuals and their families on a path to obtaining safe and affordable housing. WTHR, Wish TV, and WRTV news channels all ran news stories on the eviction clinic. So if you didn't see those on Tuesday, or you aren't from the Central Indiana area, you can check those out online. In addition, we have our last MCBA General Body meeting this year. It'll be in person, and it's at none other than the Indiana State Bar Association offices. I want to, of course, thank Leah Baker and also our MCBA liaison to the ISBA for coordinating that and allowing us to have our meetings at the ISBA office. So that will be on Wednesday, October the 18th. Immediately after, we'll have our Lawyers Lounge, which will be at Blancas Luxury Lounge. October the 21st, we will be partnering with Martin University for a community access fair. We'll be providing expungement assistance to individuals. If you're unfamiliar, Martin University is Indiana's only predominantly Black institution, founded in 1977. In November, we're planning a legislative update where two of our Indiana legislators will discuss key pieces of legislative activity. On December the 6th, the MCBA will be providing pro bono services to local Black-owned businesses at Butler University's Lacey School of Business pre-Kwanzaa celebration. December 4th through the 8th, the MCBA will host its annual CLE week, where we will offer a CLE course each day that week at lunchtime. That's free for members. And one day we will also offer a CLE course in the evening. Finally, on December the 5th, at Indie Bar headquarters, we'll have our annual holiday party, and I invite all of you to attend. This year, we'll be recognizing our life members. The MCBA is open to all, and I encourage you to join, which you can do via our website at mcbaindy.org. Also, if you're on social media, please follow us on Instagram at MCBAND. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. That is a robust calendar at MCBA. Thank you for sharing. My pleasure to invite Judge Mike Whitty, President of the Asian Pacific American Bar Association.
Thank you, Anka, and it's a pleasure to address everyone, Chief Justice Rush. The Asian Pacific American Bar Association of Indiana is an affiliate of the National Asian Pacific American Bar Association. That's a mouthful, okay? So we are known as APABA IN, and the national organization is NAPABA. First, I want to thank the Indiana State Bar Association for allowing us to have a seat at the table as an affinity organization that has a vote at the House of Delegates. And also, I want to thank the Indianapolis Bar Association because they allow us to host our monthly meetings at their headquarters on North Illinois Street downtown, and they provide the virtual access as well as the live in-person access for us, and just the welcome that they extend to us, as well as the welcome that the ISBA extends to us, is phenomenal. The big thing I want to report, and Chief Justice Rush mentioned it earlier, is that the National Asian Pacific American Bar Association is holding its annual convention in Indianapolis, and that will be November 9th through the 12th at the JW Marriott. Some of you I've talked to as this was rolling out of last year's national convention, which was in Las Vegas. There was a movement afoot to boycott Indiana, that Indiana is not friendly to people of color, that Indiana is not friendly to Asians, Latinos, Hispanics, LGBTQ, a focus on legislative actions. And that boycott was starting to get steam. And our reaction, of course, was this is our time to shine. But our message to the forces within NAPABA that were attempting this boycott was, if you want to make a difference, you have to be there, you know. And there were a lot of assumptions being made about Indianapolis itself being unfriendly. And so, you know, we just kept that drumbeat. And I don't know how many meetings, how many phone calls I was on from November to about March or April, trying to persuade these various affiliates, sections of NAPABA, don't go through with this, including the Judicial Council. The judges were not going to come. I am proud to say right now that the amount of sponsorship money that has been raised for this year's NAPABA annual convention is the largest ever in the history of NAPABA. And I'm also proud to announce that the host hotel, the JW Marriott, is sold out. And also that the alternate housing at the courtyard next door to the JW Marriott is sold out. The annual attendance at the NAPABA meeting is usually between 2,300 and 2,500. So will we see 2,500? I don't know, because we still are flyover territory, and about I want to say I think it's 80% of the membership of NAPABA is either West Coast or East Coast attorneys. But nevertheless, with those sellouts, we think that we're definitely going to exceed 2,000 attorneys coming here in November for the annual convention. And one other thing I want to point out about the boycott. Chief Justice Rush also mentioned that the National Association of Women Judges is meeting here in next week. I knew it was in October. Heather Welch and I have been in communication a lot with that one. And some of the same forces were behind trying to boycott Indiana and Indianapolis for NAWJ. And when I say same forces, I'm actually same names. So Judge Welch and I are comparing, who's leading this boycott for NAPABA, and then we'd look over here and we'd see who's leading the boycott for NAWJ, and it was the same group of people. But NAWJ has overcome that, NAPABA has overcome that. And one of the things that NAPABA is doing as a part of the national convention is not just to come to town for 4 days and spend a bunch of money and then go back to the East Coast and West Coast. They want to have a permanent imprint on Indiana. And so they are going to organize a community coalition outreach initiative to educate organizations that normally are apolitical and educate them on the difference between advocacy on public issues that are germane to all of us and is the right thing to do, and to separate that from politics. And so the first meeting of this community coalition, the invitations have already gone out. Some of you may have received some of these invitations. Is going to occur Saturday, October 14th. It's being hosted by Denton's. It will be at their law firm. But the invitations have gone out to all types of organizations statewide. And the culmination of this, they've got three training sessions set up, and then the culmination will be they're calling it Lobby Day with the Indiana legislature. So, similar to what our organization does, teachers do, unions do, will be community coalitions Lobby Day at the State House. Also, the National Convention is the host of the Thomas Tang Moot Court Competition. It's a national moot court competition. So that will be occurring during the convention. There are regional rounds that are done virtually. And if anyone is interested in serving as a moot court judge for those regional rounds, please let me know. It's October 13th and 14th, but it is being done virtually. So I'm looking at Tom Phelps, I'm looking at Fran Gull, and on our annual agenda, every year we do a Lunar New Year CLE, and that has caught on, and it's we're glad to see that another organization, I forget which bar it is kind of copying what we do, and that's great. We're not offended by it. The Lunar New Year CLE, of course, there's 12 Lunar New Years, 12 New Years in a cycle. Each one has an animal that's affiliated with that year. So we do our CLEs to try and match the animal. So for instance, when it was Year of the Dog, we had a CLE on vicious dogs and dog bites, and also on custody of pets in divorce cases. When it was Year of the Ox, we had a CLE on CAFOs, the big feed operations in farming. This year was the Year of the Rabbit, and our program was on reproduction rights and fertility fraud. well attended. And it was a fantastic program because we focused on Dr. Donald Klein. If you're familiar with Dr. Donald Klein in Indiana, he was a fertility specialist who to date is the father of at least 94 children in Indiana. You know, this fertility fraud. And if you've watched the Netflix documentary titled Our Father, it's all about that particular case. So we had Tim Delaney, who was the prosecutor at the time that prosecuted Dr. Klein for the fraud. And we also had Professor Jody Madera from IU Mauer on our panel, who were very involved in that. Next year is Year of the Dragon. And if any of you have any ideas, please, corner me and say, hey, this would be a great one, So I'll give you another example. Year of the Rat. We did a CLE on confidential informants. Okay, so we had a Secretary of State candidate forum. It was not a debate. We invited the Democratic, Republican, and the Libertarian candidates for an open forum to present their views before the May primary. And that was well received. We had 2 out of the 3 candidates show up, but NAPABA, the national organization, recognized what we were doing and want to use that as a model for their other affiliates across the United States to focus on secure voting as well as access to being able to vote. And lastly, National Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month is every May. This past year, we had the award-winning documentary, And Then They Came for Us, which is a little bit, it's narrated by George Takei, and it is about the Japanese American internment during World War II, and also the plight of Fred Korematsu and Gordon Hirabayashi, who challenged that constitutionally all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. Unfortunately, they were not successful back in the 1940s on that. But some of the wrong was righted here a couple of years ago by a U.S. Supreme Court decision. I'm not saying that they were completely exonerated, but there was a step forward. And then we also had as a follow-up speaker for the showing of that film, Dr. Karen Korematsu, who is the daughter of Fred Korematsu. So she gave us a lot of insight. I mean, give you one point that she shared with us. She never knew her dad's plight until she was in high school civics class in California. And the teacher in the civics class started talking about the Korematsu case. Never said Fred Korematsu, just Korematsu. And classmates kind of turned to Karen and said, that's your last name too. Is that a relative of yours? And she said, I don't know. And the teacher said, Karen, that's your father. That was in high school. So she, normal U.S. teen, she was a cheerleader in high school, and marching band and all those things, and finds out that her father, Fred Korematsu, was this pioneer that stood up for civil rights when the Japanese Americans were removed from their properties. And lastly, 2024 May, the Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. We're working right now on showing another film. This one is called A Long March, produced and directed by T.S. Botkin. And it is the story of Filipino Americans who fought with U.S. soldiers, some Filipino nationals who later became Filipino Americans. I should distinguish that. Filipino nationals at the time who fought alongside US soldiers and sailors when the Philippines was invaded by Japan and later taken over by Japan, who were promised by President Roosevelt full veterans benefits. And then President Roosevelt died before the end of World War II. And to this date, those Filipinos who fought alongside the American forces have never received those veterans benefits. And there still are some out there, of course, they're in their late 90s or they're 100 years old, who are still fighting for those veterans benefits. So this film is about that. And then we will have T.S. Botkin, the producer and director, also there as a speaker to follow up. So may have taken a lot of time, but we're active and we're proud. Thank you.
Judge Woody, thank you for those remarks, and you took all the time that you needed, and I appreciate you sharing about your organization. I make a motion that we have a film night at the ISBA headquarters for 2024 and watch the film. We'll get popcorn and everything and celebrate culture and history. I'd like to welcome President Bell of the Kimbrough Bar Association.
Good morning. Well, you know me, I'm Shot Trade. I am not president, but I am here on behalf of the Kimbrough Bar Association. Civil rights icon Muhammad Gandhi once stated, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And that's something that Kimbrough Bar Association prides itself on. We were founded in 1974, just about 40 years ago today. And of course, that was the year that I was born. When we speak about service and how important that is, we actually have 3 past presidents of the Kimbrough Bar Association here, and I'm going to ask them to come up on the stage with me. That's Shalise Tolbert, Michael Tolbert, and Candace Williams. Come on up. And you might ask, why is Chantre having members of his organization come up with him? One of the benefits of being a part of an organization like this is that you never feel alone. And you have a sense that someone has your back and is always there for you. And these 3 individuals in particular, although they all 3 work for Tolbert and Tolbert, are true examples of character and leadership in our community. I am a past president. I am a president. Thank you, Shalise. Always looking out. With that being said, as the Minority Bar Association in the northern part of the state, we are analogous to the MCBA, the Marion County Bar Association, but of course, we're in the northern part of the state. This past year, we had a recognition of our long-serving prosecutor, Bernard Carter, of 30 years. We've had an event honoring Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, assuming the role of the bench. We've talked about issues of the lack of lawyers in Northwest Indiana, the lack of lawyers of color in Northwest Indiana, and also the lack of lawyers of color on the bench, not on the bench as well. We talk about that we're very active in our community. That's why service is so important to us. We partner with our Lake County Bar Association, our Women's Bar Association, and our Lozano Bar Association. We support initiatives like our Community Transition Court, mentoring of students, and serving on various boards. We've had programs focused on voter registration, supporting initiatives like Men Wear Pink, raising money for breast cancer, and providing scholarships for students. We know how important pro bono is, mediation, and continuing legal education. We've had activities and events that have recognized our Black judges in the state. We're actively involved in our community, and we are not ones to speak a lot because we don't have to talk, because we do. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and take our seats. But we really enjoy our partnership with the State Bar Association. We are all past presidents, but we know how vital it is to have people who look like you and sometimes who don't make a difference in our community. I love being a part of the ISBA. I know you all do as well. And if it wasn't for your leadership, Michael and Shalise, I know I wouldn't be as actively involved as I am today. You took me under your wing. in the early 2000s and said, Chantre, you're going to be active with Kimbrough. And based on our the prior leadership with the state bar with Tom Pierce, he would help develop us as professionals. So I want to say thank you to the ISBA for all you've done and all you continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you for those remarks. I think everyone knows that the Tolberts are just wonderful people. Candace, you're a good company at your firm. Thank you to all the affinity bars for educating our delegation about the good work that you're doing to improve the legal profession and also to support the attorneys and judges throughout Indiana. For our final presentation of the day, I'd like to invite a couple of friends to share an update regarding the public defender crisis in Indiana. Joining us are Mike Moore, Assistant Executive Director of the Indiana Public Defender Council, and Amy Corosos, Chief Public Defender of Indiana.
Thank you. I wish my title was Chief Public Defender. I'm actually the State Public Defender, so it sounds a lot more impressive than maybe it is, since we have a county system here. We wanted to talk about, and thank you for having us here to give a report on public defense in Indiana. And we want to first start with public defense is more than just criminal defense.
Rainbow.
Did it work?
That's why we're figuring out the tech. So when you think of public defenders, you might think of the classic attorney who represents someone in a criminal matter that's charged with a crime, who's indigent and can't afford to hire a lawyer. We actually represent a whole host of individuals and adult and children in various matters. So we represent as the classic adults in the criminal justice system, but we also represent juveniles who were charged with delinquency and some status offenses in the juvenile court. We represent parents and children in child welfare matters, so CHINS actions, TPRs. We're often appointed attorneys through the court appointment system. We represent people who are facing contempt, often usually it's child support, contempt for failure to pay. We represent those who are facing mental health commitments. And lastly, we handle all the appeals of all these case types for those who are indigent and can't afford to hire counsel.
So today we wanted to focus on the attorney shortage, and this goes hand in hand with what the Chief Justice and Chantre were just mentioning. The attorney shortage in Indiana is pretty remarkable. We pulled some information from a recent Indiana Public Defender Commission report. And if you're on your devices, you can Google that real quick, Indiana Public Defender Commission. It's right on their opening page. But they have an updated map here that shows the situation county by county. But overall, Indiana is at 34% of the national average, or the national attorney per capita. And so overall as a state, we're very low. But if you can see in this map, if you can see your own county, there are only 3 counties where there isn't a shortage. So if you practice in Hamilton County, raise your hand. If you practice in Marion County, raise your hand. There you go. How about Martin County? Does anybody know anybody who practices in Martin County? So if you learn the secret of Martin County and why there is no shortage there, my contact information is at the end. I would love to hear that. So in Indiana, we have an attorney shortage overall, and it has gotten worse over the last few years, but it's probably no surprise that the public defender shortage is even more dire than the overall attorney shortage. My office, just as an example of how this affects people in real life, is my office can be appointed by a trial court in a direct appeal or a trial matter if there's no county public defender that can take it, or if there's a conflict. So usually maybe we'll get an occasional appointment where the whole county public defender's office is conflicted. Somebody has done something really bad or threaten the public defender, and the whole system, the whole county public defender's office gets off of it. Or occasionally when a county public defender's office has hit their cap and can't take any more cases, usually at the end of the fiscal year. Well, this past summer, within 2 months, we got over 200 trial level appointments out of 2 counties. And that was because public defenders quit and they couldn't find public defenders to replace them. So what happened when we got in there and finally found attorneys for these people were in some cases, they had been sitting for weeks without having counsel appointed. But in some cases, the cases had been sitting for years. And so they had cycled through several public defenders as one quit and another one was appointed, start over again, and then that one quit. And so as you can see, the situation is something that's not just in theory, it's real out there. And as we tried to find public defenders in some of these cases to take the cases, I was a little bit worried by the fact that counties that I was trying to pull from also had voiced concern that they were getting ready to face a shortage of their own. So the reasons vary why there is a public defender shortage. So that's Gideon, if you're not aware, Gideon versus Wainwright. There's a Sixth Amendment constitutional right to counsel for accused in criminal cases. But over 100 years before Gideon versus Wainwright, our Indiana Supreme Court held that in Webb versus Baird, that accused persons had a right to counsel that's grounded in the principles of a civilized society. Public defenders across the country are chronically understaffed, and it causes real problems. People go months without legal representation, sometimes languishing in jail during that time. And it has real consequences for people's lives. So just a couple of days in jail, I used to do chins and termination of parental rights actions. A couple of days in jail can destroy a family. People can lose their jobs, they can lose their housing, they can lose their children. So what this means is we really do have 2 systems of justice. We have one for people that don't have money and one for people that do. And that's not fair. What that means is our system is broken. So it affects all of us. Particularly public defenders are hit hard because we don't get paid much. Obviously, we don't get paid as much as other attorneys, but the median salary for Indiana lawyers overall currently is about $105,000 a year. For the executive branch just went on and just overhauled salaries. And so DCS, Department of Child Service attorneys, the median salary is over $99,000 a year. For public defenders, the median pay is about $79,000 a year. It's not just money though. Public defenders have crushing caseloads in some places. One attorney that quit in one of the counties I was mentioning told me that when he came in and took a contract, he was given all the attorneys' cases who had quit before him. So he had a full caseload, but those didn't count towards his caseload cap because he had already been counted once in the county. So he got another full caseload on top of that as new cases were filed. And as Michael talk about in a minute, we don't really have control over what's filed. The other thing that affects attorneys, almost as much as pay, I think, is lack of parity in support staff. We need investigators, we need paralegals, we need office support staff, we need insurance, we need things that the prosecutor probably has on the other side, but the public defenders might not have. And then finally, in Indiana, we have a county-based system, but it operates differently in every county. Some counties have a well-funded public defender office. Some counties do part-time contracts. In a lot of places, the contract is still with the judge. And so the public defender really reports to the judge in that county. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike to talk about how we make things worse.
I wanted to add too, with respect to pay, as Amy described, the one consistent thing in public defense is that every county does it inconsistently across the board. In many counties, there may be a public defender agency, but they don't handle all the cases. They may handle just felonies or only juvenile matters or what have you. And most attorneys that do public defense work do so on a contract basis, so they don't have benefits, they don't have insurance, and they're ineligible for student loan forgiveness under the federal program because they don't work full-time for a not-for-profit entity. I wanted to point this graph out to you. So we started keeping track in 2016. The state legislature took it upon itself to really look hard at our criminal justice system and the disparity with respect to how people are punished. When I was in Marion County as a public defender, a lot of what I did was drug work. And I would have people in prison would get sentenced as 20, 30 years. And then an hour later, another courtroom for something of a sex offense or child molest would get 8 to 10. And so there's a huge disparity with respect to how we punish people who are themselves addicts, addicted to drugs, nonviolent drug offenders. So the state legislature went through the criminal code and rewrote it in a way in hopes to make it more fair that so the crime and the punishment match up. But almost immediately, the year after, they started undoing a lot of the good work that was done in 2016. So what this graph represents is all the new criminal statutes or penalties or enhancements that came after 2016, after the reforms of 2014, excuse me. And as you can see, every year, there's just been a slow march, adding more criminal penalties, more enhancements, and more higher penalties for these charges. And as Amy said, we don't control the input. Just on the phone a little bit ago with a friend of mine who said, we were talking about public defenders and child welfare matters, is that we get appointed to the case often well after the child's been removed and really too late to do much to help this family. And she said we're bailing bathwater out of the bathtub while the spigot's still on because we can't turn the spigot off. And that describes public defense. Prosecutors choose what to charge. They choose whether to defer. Police officers choose whether to arrest, whether to explore other options. And DCS chooses whether to file a charge and remove a child. We don't get those choices. We get the case where it is in the moment. And so with this slow creasing with new criminal charges and penalties, the need for public defenders or indigent representation just grows with it. And so the natural response is remove the inputs, lower the inputs, and the outputs will then follow. So this, I think, demonstrates what's been happening in our state legislature. And the more you enhance criminal penalties or create new crimes, the more crimes there will be. This is part of the problem. Are we talking about solutions now? Okay, so some of the solutions that Amy's already talked about and kind of alluded to is there needs to be an overhaul of the criminal justice system with respect to public defense, but there are ways that the Bar Association can help as well. Right now, this year, the legislature is considering modifying our state constitution to allow courts to hold people without a bond under safety concerns or what have you. And so this is an opportunity for lawyers to speak up if we're concerned about that. Indiana has long recognized the constitutional right to bond, and this is the first time that our legislatures consider amending the Constitution to allow people to be held without a bond. And so this is the first year it passed. We'll see how things go forward, but this is an opportunity for you all to speak up and make your voice known if you have some concerns in that area.
Thank you. And here's our contact information. We appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike and Amy. I believe we're all better informed about public defense and some of the issues that are currently being faced by many throughout the state. I think sometimes when you're not accused of something or think that you'll never be accused of something, you may not think about the importance of public defense and how that affects people around the state. That could be your child away at college who doesn't want to tell you, I've been arrested for public intoxication. So you find out on my case, or it could be like one of their friends or relatives. So public defense, it really does affect all of us. So don't think that that we're not touched by the public defense system. So thank you. As you may know, the House of Delegates often considers resolutions from its sections and committees. However, there are no resolutions presented for consideration this year. If you're a member of a committee or section, please know that this body exists in part to consider various issues where it may lend support from the larger body of ISBA. Last year, we considered a resolution from the tax section. In the years past, we have considered resolutions from the Wellbeing Committee, Diversity Committee, and others. Resolutions are not limited to sections and committees. If you have an issue that you wish to bring before this body, please speak with your section and committee staff liaison or our chair-elect, Seamus Boyce. I'd now like to take some time to share some exciting news about next year's annual summit and House of Delegates meeting. Over the past several years, the number of business items coming before the body has dwindled. However, we realize the importance and power of bringing together legal practitioners from all around the state. Our meeting is the only convening meeting of all Indiana practitioners. We think it's critically important that we continue to come together in order to address issues in our profession. Therefore, the format of next year's annual summit will be different. Rather than addressing whatever business may come before us, we will be proactive in choosing a topic or two that needs your input. And perhaps some of the things that we've heard today are potential ideas. We will come together to problem solve. Our hope to bring in speakers and conduct brainstorming sessions to address these challenges together. Think of it as a gathering, complete with educational programming, but with a narrow focus on the future of the practice in Indiana. Some examples of this might include changes to the regulation of the profession, pathways to a law license, or ideas of improvement that may be made in the judiciary. ISBA leadership, staff, and volunteers will be working over the next year to determine the topics we will bring before you. We hope that you would join us and lend your voice in shaping the future of Indiana's legal system. And speaking of ISBA sections and committees, they have done some amazing work this year, some of which we've heard from Madam President's report. I strongly encourage you to read the section and committees report that is available on the ISBA website and to learn all about the work of your association is doing for you. Again, that link was shared with all delegates via email. Before we move into the final portion of the meeting, I'd like to take some time to highlight a new effort by the Judges and Lawyers Assistance Program, specifically the JLAB Treatment Fund. The JLAB Treatment Fund is a project of the Indiana Bar Foundation. It provides financial assistance to members of our legal community who cannot otherwise afford treatment, medication, or treatment-related services. 100% of donations go directly to treatment costs. No administrative fees are deducted. You can donate to the fund by visiting www.inbf.org/donate, which is highlighted on the screen. The QR code on the screen will take you to their donation page via the foundation. So right now, I'm going to challenge all of you to get out your QR code on your telephone. I know everyone has their telephone out, and take a picture and learn more about the treatment fund. I know sometimes when it comes to JLAB, people are often hesitant to stop by the table or to inquire because they may not want others to think they may need help or anyhow affiliated with JLAB, but JLAB is a wonderful organization that helps people. The treatment fund goes directly to our peers. It could be someone that you're sitting next to, someone across the aisle, someone that you may assume is doing really well in practice, but really struggling. Perhaps they cannot stop their practice to go to treatment. This fund can help support that person. It can cost thousands of dollars to go to treatment. Imagine if you're a solo practitioner and you don't have insurance. What would that look like if you had to stop your practice and how that affects their family and the extra stress that they would have? So I encourage you to all at least learn more about the JLAB Treatment Fund, to all donate to the JLAB Treatment Fund. I have personally donated to the fund to support my peers. Also, the JLAB table is outside this room. You can get more information. I hope you consider donating and supporting our fellow judges and attorneys. Now, it's time to formally elect our new House of Delegates chair-elect. I'd like to invite to the podium Mike Jositis of Crown Point, Chair of the Nominations Committee, to share the committee's report.
Pursuant to the provisions of the Indiana State Bar Association bylaws, notice is hereby given to all members of the association and to all members of the House of Delegates that the nominating committee of the House of Delegates of the Indiana State Bar Association nominates the following candidate: Magistrate Elizabeth Bellin, Area 1. Such candidate, if properly elected as the chair-elect at the 2023 Annual House of Delegates meeting, will serve 1 year as member of the Board of Governors in the capacity of chair-elect of the House, and will then assume the office of chair at the close of the 2024 annual meeting, serving until the close of the 2025 annual meeting.
Thank you, Mike. Do I have a motion? Any discussion? I hear none. All in favor of approving the committee's recommendation, please say aye if you're attending in person. Any opposed? Virtual delegates, please vote via the poll that now appears on your screen. Congratulations, Judge Bellin. Is there any old business to come before the House? Is there any new business to come before the House? Anything on your mind and heart that you would like to share as new business? It's great to be up here supporting ISBA and all of you. Thank you. Nothing online. Nothing online. Nothing on our hearts, nothing on our minds. No one wants to champion a protest. Okay. All righty. Well, we hope that you registered to join us for the Membership Assembly Luncheon. Today's keynote will kick off a year-long focus on artificial intelligence and its impact on the legal profession. Not only will we learn some of the pitfalls, we will learn some of the opportunities it may present. Keep an eye in your inbox for future programming on this topic. For those who registered, the luncheon will begin at 11:45 in the Cosmopolitan Ballroom, which is C&D, which is located next door. We will hear a little bit more from Madam President Dudas, elect our new Board of Governors, induct Judge Feltz as the State Bar's 128th president. And also historical because he is also a current judge. So it's going to be a great moment. At 11:45, we will conclude the summit with a reception in the studio lounge, which is at the top of the escalators. We hope that you can join us. I'd like to thank our sponsors of this year's annual summit, the Sprunger Professional Employer Agency, LexisNexis, the law firm of Amundsen Davis, which is where I practice. We wouldn't be able to do a fraction of this without our partners. As my final act of the House of Delegates Chair, I'd like to invite our incoming chair, Seamus Boyce, to join me at the podium. Seamus was elected by the House of Delegates last year to follow me as chair. I'd like to now pass the gavel and allow your new chair to wrap things up.
Thanks, Anka, for your service for the House of Delegates. Known Anka since we got to know each other through the Leadership Development Academy, and I'm honored to be her colleague. So I'm also honored to serve as the next chair of the House of Delegates, which I'll be through the next meeting next year. And thanks to all of our delegates for volunteering to participate this morning. It is critical for our profession and society that we collaborate and encourage our colleagues to come off the sidelines to join us in our work and traditions. We will see you next year for the House of Delegates meeting and reimagined annual summit of our Indiana State Bar Association. For those who registered, we'll see you at lunch, and this meeting is adjourned.